So I just want to make sure that Deb Kulik joins because she was waiting to join.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Rebecca, perfect.
We're also waiting on Debbie Wasowski. She's going to join us. She's going to serve for taking the minutes tonight.
Okay, she's on, I think. I see her.
I am on now.
Yeah. Yep, we hear you. Great. And so then we're waiting
I
for,
can't hear anybody.
oh, we hear you, Rebecca. You don't hear us.
Hello?
Hello? It's Debbie.
I think Debbie's on. Okay, great, Debbie. And then
No, computer.
is George on? Is he with someone who's on?
We made it.
My Zoom isn't working.
Oh, there's George. Okay. Oh, there's Dr. Riker and George. Okay, great. Didn't want to start without George. Okay, great. Okay, Rebecca, do you hear me now? Rebecca? Okay, let's see. I'm just Rebecca? We don't see her video either. She doesn't hear us. Okay, I'll just ask Rebecca if she can log out and log back in because she can't hear us.
Yeah, her volume may be down, Damari.
On the computer, right?
Yes, yes.
Because she never has issues. She's always.
Now I got it. Okay.
Oh, there she is. Okay. I'm like, she never has issues. She's a tech guru. Okay, well, it's 7:10. We're a little bit behind since we're following another committee meeting. So we apologize to those who were waiting. We're going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting to order. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we can have the flag. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all. Thank you. Debbie, can we have a roll call, please?
Okay, Dr. Bonilla,
Present.
George Andrews,
Present.
Rebecca Bear,
Present.
and Debbie Kulik.
Present.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. We are going to go ahead and request an approval of the agenda. So I need a motion to approve the agenda for July 1st, 2020, with members of the committee reserving the right to add to the agenda and take further action in the best interest of the district. Do I have a motion?
Yes. Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca. Do I have a second?
Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. I love the verbal and the nonverbal. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was June 3rd, 2020.
Rebecca, motion.
Thank you, Rebecca. A second?
Second, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Tonight, we have a couple of important topics on our item for discussion. We're going to continue our conversation from last month around the high school level programs. And then we have two topics that we know are of interest to the community based on hearing from parents and colleagues in the district. So I'm going to ask Mr. Moran to go ahead and lead us in this section.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Dr. Bonilla. I want to thank our committee members, our district employees that are able to join us this evening, as well as our community members. We appreciate your attendance and participation in our discussion around important educational topics. We're going to start this evening with a continuation of our high school level programs and resources. Tonight focusing on our elective programs and resources. And Mrs. Pipperato will go ahead and walk us through the information regarding our elective courses. Again, this is a continuation from the core programs and resources that we heard about last month. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Pipperato to share information regarding our elective programs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Moran. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Super. And I apologize for my background. I had to emergency grab my husband's laptop because mine wasn't working. So you're stuck looking at my craft room, which looks like I'm very productive, but I'm not. Anyway, so electives. I'm also apologizing because you poor people have had to hear me 3 weeks in a row. So I'm going to try to be brief for you. You really did get the overall view from intermediate and high school in terms of cores. So I'm just going to give you a really high level picture of the electives that we have. And thinking about the organization and the rationale behind it, there have been a lot of people who've come and gone in our district who have been responsible for kind of adding on to this menu over the years. And I don't know that if we ever had an organizing structure for it, I don't know that we have that anymore. That doesn't mean that it's bad. We've got a lot of really good choices for our students. So, but I think one of the things we purposefully want to do in this is talk about why do we have certain electives over others? Why are some subjects maybe represented more than others? And talking about career clusters and career pathways. You know, we're in the Monroe County pathway group. So I think part of the work that we need to do around our electives is just looking overall eventually at why do we offer what we do? We do have a really good menu. Our students are certainly taking advantage of it, but putting into place a system that allows us to yearly review enrollment and look at the interests that our students have, and then base that program not only on their interests, but on what we think is going to be really advantageous for them as they go out into the world of work. So you will see categorized here by subject matter, the electives that we do offer. And what I try to do on the left-hand side is generally draw a category within that subject. So within the subject of art, for example, digital art could be a career pathway that a student could pursue either vocationally or through college. Ceramics and sculpture is an aspect of art that they could pursue. So what I've done is kind of organize it by what general electives do we have in that subject that in a liberal arts offering like we have, any student can take, as opposed to then what kind of career pathways do we have within each subject that our students can pursue through high school to really prepare themselves and distinguish themselves for what they want to do after high school. So in art, you'll see that we have a number of offerings. We have some general ones that anybody can take, and then we have drawing, fine arts, which is really particular drawing and painting for very specific artistic purposes, as opposed to commercial purposes, which is drawing. Digital art, taking advantage of the digital aspect of photography. For the most part, gone are the days of the black room, the dark room, right? Portfolio prep, which is really talking about getting together a portfolio to prepare yourself as an art student in college. That really is a prerequisite if you're going to be an art student in college. And then ceramics and sculpture, that's another avenue that we have. In business, our offerings are centered around, again, we have some general things. If you remember that freshman year, freshmen are required to take either Intro to Business or a world language. So everybody gets one of those. Then we have a very specific and very strong accounting path. We have a computer science path for students. We have a sports and entertainment path. As you know, that has exploded in recent years. Who of us would have thought 20 years ago that in college there were going to be majors around fantasy football and fantasy teams? That just blows my mind when I think of it. And then of course, entrepreneurship. When you think of small business and what it takes to own and run a small business, I think that is more and more important in the business atmosphere. Well, if you look at America, I mean, small business really is the heart of this country. So making sure that we have that. In English, we have very traditional offerings, and there are a number of them. We have journalism and yearbook, public speaking, which probably put the fear of God into many of you in high school, if you remember that class, creative writing, and then we've expanded into drama and to film. So we have those avenues that students can partake in. Family and consumer science, we divided that into the three, I would say, main branches, which is the clothing industry, our food industry. Our most popular class, if you were to take it in the whole high school, is probably Bon Appetit. And then childcare, child development 1, 2, and 3. Health and phys ed, we have lifeguarding and advanced strength and conditioning that students can take on top of their normal health and phys ed classes. In mathematics, our primary elective pathway is in the computer sciences. So it's focusing on programming, gaming, coding, that kind of thing, the behind the scenes aspects of math. In music, we have a strong vocal and instrumental piece. We do, because of lessons, have string instruments, but we don't have a section, a separate section of string. We generally keep it with vocal and instrumental. And there's a number of classes for students to pursue if they're going to do that post high school. If you've never been invited to a student recitation or a student performance, many of these classes require a performance in front of their peers, which I can tell you is really daunting for a high school student. So I think those students who pursue music at that level are very prepared to be performers. They hold themselves incredibly well in front of public, in a public environment. In science, right now, the only elective that we have is in forensic science. Thank you, CSI, right? And all of those shows that make that popular for students. In social studies, and social studies really encompasses a broad range of topics. We primarily, in the core, if you remember, look at history, geography, civics, and economics through the lens of US history and a little bit of world history. We augment that in our electives with psychology and sociology paths, and then some government and politics at the AP level. In technology education, and this really is, I think, what we used to call shop or the industrial arts. There are 4 main real pathways that if a student wants to pursue, they can. Again, MCTI has some of these offerings too, but we concentrate them here for students who don't want to do MCTI as a half day, but really want to remain in homeschool. So we have graphic arts, we have drawing and engineering, the whole architecture path, electronic arts, so that's really electronics, and then wood technology. I think what a lot of people think of as your traditional shop. And then world language, we offer 3 world languages, beginning in the middle level, as you remember, and going all the way up to a level 7. Because of our block schedule, we can offer this many electives. And of course, that a number of these can culminate in an AP level class, and even beyond that, as you can see. And so that's really the synopsis of the electives. I included a chart at the very end just to remind us how many credits in electives students have to take and what the breakdown is of that. 2 in humanities, 1 in computer literacy, which I think we will probably come to you soon with a proposition to probably get rid of that. Computer literacy is now in every course that we have. It's difficult to have a course without computer literacy. So we're probably going to reimagine some of what that looks like. Family and consumer science is a half credit requirement, and then 5.5 of any and all other combinations of the ones that you saw above. And that's it.
Ms. Piparato, the changes you might consider would be, you say humanities and computer literacy or only computer literacy?
All of it needs to be revisited, Dr. Bonilla. I think computer literacy is the easiest starting point just because it's now and it really is involved in everything. But I think we probably need to look at it all and just try to understand, have a reason for us and you as a committee, right? To say, why do we offer what it is that we offer? And then go from there.
Is computer literacy a state requirement or is it just something we require?
It is not, it's just something we require.
Which at some point was a great skill,
Yes.
but you're saying now it's something that we're embedding throughout all of the courses, and definitely the need is at a much higher level than the one we had, the one credit we had.
And are these classes, everything offered on here, offered at both North and South? Because some of these I did not see on my son's course selections that are listed here. So are they, like, for example, AP Sociology is not offered at North, I know that.
So it's in the program of studies. Every single one of these courses is in the program of studies. We've worked really hard the last 2 years to make sure that it's offered. If for some reason it is not on that course selection sheet, I really need to know that because
Yeah, it's not, so. And there's a couple other ones that I didn't see either, like vocal technique and styling, I didn't see. The fashion, clothing, construction, I didn't see on there. Because I pulled his out when I looked at this to see what I saw that kind of matched up.
okay.
And a couple, and then advanced drawing and painting wasn't on there, and advanced sculpture is not on there.
It could be
For sure.
also that some of these are grade level specific.
That's what I was going to ask. Do they vary by? Okay,
They
would you
do.
go through that?
He's a junior, so I'm thinking they allow them to take more classes when they're a junior than when they're a freshman or a sophomore.
I agree. I would think that too.
Those classes on there, because AP Sociology would be a junior, senior level class, and that wasn't listed.
It would be, yeah, it should be at least an elective.
And it was not, so I'm just saying we need to really look at that.
Yep, thank you. I'll take a look at that, definitely.
'Cause I want to make sure that, a big thing that's, I want to see equity between North and South and making sure
Yes,
that everything is offered at both schools. And I'm a North parent, so I can't tell you if it's on South, but what I can tell you is what's on North when I look at my sons.
I will make sure that I look at that. I will tell you one thing that sometimes people don't understand. This is not your issue right now. That is a different issue, and I'll look at the course selection sheet.
Right.
Although they're offered at both schools, there are some that traditionally never have enough enrollment and so never run, even though we always offer them, right? So I'm thinking gender studies is one of them that is very popular South, but for some reason at High School North, we only get 5 or 6 students to sign up, and we can't run a course at 5 or 6 students. So that's a separate issue. And sometimes people say, why does this never run? And that's one of those things that when the enrollment is so low, we can't. What we have done, and we're looking at right now, is say, and I'm working primarily with our 2 assistant principals, Amy Polemounter at South and Josh Fuller at North. They're fantastic. They've worked together. They've really collaborated well over the last 2 years to try to bring a program of studies that is the same for North and the same for South. So we're still working on that. But one of our things that I've asked them to do is to say, every year from starting 2 years ago, I want you to tell me the courses that are not enrolled enough for you to offer. If after 3 years, a course continually doesn't enroll, what my suggestion will be is to offer that course only every 2 years. Sometimes students, when they realize it's only every 2 years, they sign up for it because they know they're only going to be able to get it in this year. And then enrollment goes up and we're able to run that.
Would there be something that, what I was thinking too, is if they have more enrolled at South than North, but there's North kids that want to take it, couldn't we do like a Zoom, have the teacher be on Zoom and the kid be on his computer and actually enjoy the class with South?
It depends, but probably more now than ever before.
Right, like a gender studies class, that could be done via Zoom. I understand if it's an art class, obviously you can't do that via Zoom because that's more hands-on. but like an AP Sociology that's offered at South and maybe not at North, kids that are taking AP are usually a little bit more tech savvy. So why couldn't they go into, a room and just log into their computer and take the class that way live with the class in South and work into their schedule?
AP is generally more difficult, but our AP numbers generally, even if we only have a few students to enrolled in the class for an AP class, we generally still run it. So that's a little, but I understand your position about the Zoom, and in some, you're right, it's not tenable, and in some, we probably could. It's a great point. We used to have distance learning, remember that? That was hard with cameras in the room, et cetera, but now everybody has laptops. And I think after this year especially, we're much more comfortable with the technology.
I think Debbie has a question after me.
Debbie, can you unmute yourself? Oh, you're unmuted now.
I sent to Mr. Moran about a program that I was looking to see, and I didn't see first responder or ET.
Do you want me
What's
to
the
answer that,
story?
Mr. Moran, or would you like to?
I'll go ahead and answer that. Ms. Kulik, thank you for sending that information to me this afternoon. I did respond, but I understand probably wouldn't have an opportunity to see that, before our meeting. So those courses are still offered. So EMR, for instance, is still offered. It's a dual enrollment class. So all of the dual enrollment classes are not included on the elective programs sheet that you see in front of you. So because those courses, are run through typically NCC, we have separated that from the program of studies, are then communicated by our school counselors and our teachers, to encourage students obviously to participate in those courses. So they are running, or that course in particular is running next year. We have 14 students enrolled thus far for North, and I believe 25 students enrolled for South. So if you remember, this year we were only able to run it at one of the buildings. For the 2021 school year, we will have a section at both buildings.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. I appreciate that. To answer a little bit further, I think to Mrs. Bear, I think it's a great suggestion. Are there ways that we can have students from one school participate in a course that is offered at another school, especially when we're talking about enrollment. Sometimes, obviously we're not going to have enough students in one particular building enroll in the course, but I think that's definitely something, we as a curriculum office and our administrative team would want to look at, a little bit closer, is how can we provide, courses that may not run in one building, still make, accessible to students across the district. And I would say very similarly, we would want to look at our courses through Osaka. And is that something where, we can have students go to a room, within the high schools and participate in our Cyber Academy courses. So we talked a little bit about that hybrid schedule that would allow students to take some courses, kind of brick and mortar in front of a teacher, and then other courses having the flexibility to choose to take that through cyber. So I think, those are all things that we as a curriculum office, and then also I think as an educational committee will want to discuss as we move forward in this process.
Yeah, I think Ms. Piparato is correct that this is the right time for that discussion, and it'll probably be more seamless now after the experience we've all had.
And I think there are some schools who've gone before us, districts who have started to kind of open this up to students, and it's really valuable to listen to some of their experiences. Downingtown, for example, Downingtown has a really prestigious STEM academy where students, before we've limited them and said, you can only take 8 credits and there has to be so much here and so much there. And what they really said, their theory was, let's just open it up. Look, whatever they want to take and they're good. They came back to our committee and said, wow, there were things socially and emotionally that we should have considered before we did that. And so students were killing themselves to take the most credits they could at the highest AP levels, in school, because then they could take as many credits as they wanted online after, and they were actually making themselves, some of them, physically sick. So it's interesting as we have this conversation, just to say, let's take advantage of the technology that we can, but let's still remember that our kiddos are still 18 and under, and they still need some help in regulating themselves and making sure that their physical and emotional well-being is still kept up.
Thank you for that. It's the reason that I'm so proud of our district with the focus on social emotional learning and meeting students' needs, particularly coming out of the last couple of months and still with all of the uncertainties facing us. I think that's the right mindset in terms of how we approach all of the decisions over the coming weeks and months. So thank you for that.
You bet.
Dr. Bonilla,
Yes, Dr. Riker.
just to add to what Heather said and echo her point, I think that part of that is an education that our families, and we've worked on this, but we have more work to do on this, and our students who believe getting all those credits and getting all those courses is going to be their ticket into their post-secondary job, or more importantly, or as important, to some college. And we still have that mentality in our education system. It's not an East Stroudsburg mentality. It's across the board, I believe, in many of our school systems, that the more AP courses you take, or the more credits you have as a high school student, somehow that's going to be your access into the college or university or community college or a job. And the reality of that is just not true. And so our kids are doing these things, as Heather said, that are harming them emotionally, social, emotional, the whole trauma informed, because I believe our parents, our families, our students still believe that that's somehow is important to the next phase of their life when they graduate high school. And so I think we have a lot to do there educationally to help students to recognize you don't have to take 10 AP courses before you graduate. And even if you do, there's no guarantee that that's going to get you into the school that you're hoping and dreaming of going to. So there's an educational piece behind that as well, so that we can get students to really take the courses that they want to take and that are important to them and they're motivated to take. As I always say, school becoming something we do for students and not to them. So I appreciate that conversation. I think it's an important part of our decision-making moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Riker. I definitely agree with you. And I appreciate the commitment to the trauma-informed care. Again, I keep going back to what our students have been facing the past couple of months and just such uncertainty even in the near future. And so I always am a fan of educating the community and having these discussions. And so I'm here with you. Let's do that. Back to you, Mr. Moran.
So I just want to thank Heather and Tabitha for the work that they did over the past few months to really give us a big picture view of the programs and resources that we offer, K to 12. I think this is definitely the beginning point for us as a committee to take that information and now start to look at recommendations as we move forward for how we can meet the needs of our students in different ways and leverage kind of that voice and choice that we've talked about. So look forward to our continued discussions around our course offerings for our students and how we can leverage the technology and programs that we have throughout the district. Any other comments or questions on the high school level elective programs? Okay, want to provide an update for the committee members as well as our community regarding our summer programs. First and foremost, I want to thank the committee as well as the entire board for their support, allowing our district to move forward with an enrichment program, not only kindergarten through 5th grade as we have had in the past, but also expanding that to grades 6 through 8. Based on how we ended the school year with the mandatory school closure and working from a learn from home program, we felt it was essential to continue to engage students throughout the summer months in an educational platform. So we appreciate and understand and thank the board and committee members for the support in that. So as an update, I just want to share with you our elementary summer enrichment program was summer cruising with East Stroudsburg Area School District. And we have 382 students across our 6 elementary buildings who are led on a 4-week exploration of diverse continents. It's a great opportunity for students led by our teachers to explore different continents from the geography to animal life, plant life, food and culture, art and music from around the world. Really engaging students in understanding the diverse continents that we have. So great opportunity for our students. They have the opportunity to spend 4 weeks aboard their cruise ship, or they can select weekly itineraries to attend a continent a week. So there's a lot of flexibility and choice for students and families from being able to attend a week-long session to committing to 4 weeks and being able to attend each of those different continents aboard their cruise ship. Staff, through the leadership of Dr. Bradley, worked tirelessly to move a typically in-person program to a virtual platform for our students, and appreciate and recognize the effort and work that they've done. This week began our first week of our program, and we're already seeing it being successful with our students as they explore those areas. So I'm going to share my screen just for a moment so we can see some of pictures that we have of our students as they are engaged in their summer learning. Can you see the collage? Great. So the collage, you'll see different students from kindergarten through 5th grade, as well as some of our students who are engaged in our 6th through 8 program. And this week, they're focusing on Australia. So they're exploring Australia with their cruise ship director and also their itinerary directors, their teachers, as they explore this continent. Really focusing both digitally, but then also non-digital tasks, where they can engage with family members as they explore these different areas. Really allows them, great opportunity to step away from the computer. And I think that was an important piece of the program design, having that virtual component, but then spending time offline, exploring, building, and creating. So you see multiple pictures of students and their creations, as well as right in the center of that collage, you can see one of our teachers, Miss Fabiola Savant, as she's engaging students in a Google Meet as they are talking about their adventure that they had on that day. So students get to start off meeting with their director, talking about what they're going to explore for the day. They get to go off on their own for a time period during that day, and then they end the day coming back and really talking about and engaging with each other about everything that they've learned, they've built, they've created. So great opportunity for our students, and really look forward to seeing all the work that they do over the next 3.5 weeks.
I like the dog who took the class too.
Oh, of course. And we noticed that even just through our Learn from Home program. So not only were students, engaged, but of course, it was an opportunity for them to have a little show and tell with their pets. So, and you can see, the bottom left-hand picture in that collage, you can see a young student working with a family member as they are putting together, it looks like some boomerangs, probably from Australia, as they're doing their exploration. So again, great engagement with our family members. And that is something that, we typically don't get to see in our in-person program, where it's students coming to obviously the school and participating with the teachers. They may have some activities that they get to go home and work on with their families, but we typically don't get to see that as we do in this digital platform. So it's a great opportunity. Right now we have 382 students, as I mentioned, participating. 67 chose non-digital. So all the information and materials that they need were organized and sent home or picked up by families so that they could participate in these activities. 315 students were able to join digitally. So again, ensuring that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. Also, go ahead, sorry.
I just wanted to thank the team. My sons have participated in the summer program since kindergarten, and I know how much energy and effort goes into coordinating those hands-on activities and the engagement. So I know that it took a lot to move from the in-person to the digital. My boys have provided feedback that they like the break in between. They don't feel like they're fully in school, and they've liked the break and the opportunity to work on activities, and they seem to be enjoying it so far. So thank you to the team for all of those efforts.
Great, thank you for that feedback, and I'm certain Dr. Bradley will bring that back to the team that really put together this program. And I know that was an essential kind of piece to it. It was, making sure that students had that time away from the screen. I think that was, feedback from teachers, that was feedback from families, who were concerned that, students would be in front of a computer all summer long, all day. And we wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case, in this program.
Correct. I also appreciate the flexibility in terms of the time where students can start a little bit earlier or a little bit later. I think, one of the conversations we have specifically in this committee is always equitable access. And so just knowing that people have different schedules and something might work better for a time, might work better for one family than for another. I think that was a really nice opportunity. So thanks.
Yes, and that's something, we focus on even with the in-person program in years past, was making sure that, families, we want to honor obviously the families that have vacations planned, they have time that they want to spend together. So there is that flexibility for students to participate in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or all 4. And I think that's an important piece, of our enrichment program, that flexibility that it permits families, to really choose how much time that they are able to be engaged in that learning process in the summer. Our new program really is grades 6 through 8, and it's called Summer Academy. Great opportunity. Mrs. Piparato did a fantastic job working with some of our teacher leaders throughout the district in not only imagining and really thinking up what this could look like, but really putting the ownership on the teachers to submit, different proposals for different types of courses and programs that we wanted to offer to our students. At the end, we had 18 different sessions that students could pick from. They are 4-day long sessions. So a student has 18 different sessions across the 4 weeks that they can choose to participate in. They're 1 hour in length each day. So again, provides a lot of flexibility for students to choose different programs that they want to participate in, but also have that time away from the screen to engage with their families as well. We have, an array of different types of activities that students can participate in, from activities such as wildlife conservation in your backyard, coding with microbit, laser engraving, becoming a SpiderMan expert, person who impacted U.S. history. And those are just a few of the programs that students got to choose from that our staff developed, knowing and again, collecting data from our students as to what they were interested in. And I think that was a key piece in the development of this program. Mrs. Piparato putting together a survey really looking for student interest as to, what types of programs would they be interested in participating this summer. We have 73 students across Lehman and JTL who are participating in the 18 sessions. Across those 18 sessions, we have 260 enrolled. So 73 students who selected multiple sessions to attend over the 4 weeks. Also provided the opportunity for students who may not have access, from their homes, that they could come to a building where we would set them up with access. To date, I do not believe that we have students that needed that or required that. So all of our students are participating digitally. Again, this is the first year we've offered these types of sessions to our students in 6th through 8th grade. So we look forward to getting feedback from our students as well as our staff as to the success and ways that we can improve this type of program as we move forward. And on our collage, you can see a few pictures of students' work that they've done. We know we got SpiderMan's powers, where they're really thinking about another superhero that can complement Spider-Man and really kind of working through that. And again, these are all teacher proposed programs, and we're seeing a lot of success already this week.
Can I chime in one thing? I got an email from one of our teachers today who's leading a session, and she thanked us for offering it because I think sometimes we forget the impact on teachers too. She's missed the students so much, and she's so thrilled to be able to in the summer also have this contact with students. And she said, I just decided on a whim to have Riddle Wednesday, and if they wanted to, they could sign in 20 minutes early, and then we would just talk about riddles. And she said, and every one of them came. I couldn't believe it. So she's thrilled to be in front of students, and it sounds like the students are really thrilled to be with her too.
So again, thank you to the committee as well as the board for allowing us to move forward, with these enrichment programs, especially grades 6 through 8, knowing that that was a new program for this summer. Our final agenda item is more for discussion around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So at this time, I will turn it back, I think, to Dr. Bonilla to kind of start us off in that conversation. And we look forward to our participation throughout this evening.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Moran. We have been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion since I came on. The new 3 board members came on. I know Ms. Bear and I have been talking about the experiences that we've had, the individuals that we know have been leading DEI efforts within the district, and talking with administration, and had already known, I think all of us had already known that we wanted to embed DEI more throughout the coming school year and over the long term. And then we've seen all that has happened throughout society. And the conversation has been elevated, I think, for just about everyone and every school district. I had a discussion on Monday with the new president, new CEO of the National School Board Association, who is a Latina for the first time in the organization's history. And we talked about the DEI efforts and what they are looking at as a coalition of representation from school districts across the country, what some of the gaps are, and what some of the opportunities are. And so I really appreciate the partnership with the school board and this committee and the administration in terms of not just having a discussion and implementing short-term changes, really looking at the long term, looking at the implications of the changes to curriculum, looking at the organizational culture and all of the different components. And as a DEI practitioner, I've led a national DEI effort for the last 14 years before January. I know that this is not an overnight situation. This is not something that we can just put in place tomorrow, but there is a process, there is education, there is training, and a lot of commitment. And it takes all of us to be sure that we can do this successfully. And so I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion. We will in a little bit open up for public participation, take into consideration all of the ideas and go back to our discussions about what we can implement sooner and then what's more longer term. But I wanted us to hear from our district's leader, who has been and is committed to DEI work, has been involved in several efforts throughout the community. And he seems like he's hanging out over there, huh? George and Dr. Riker, you're having a good old time together. But Dr. Riker, we wanted to hear from you if you would share your experiences and what you've been involved with, and then we can open up the discussion to the committee, and then in a little bit for public participation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Bonilla.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you indicating that this is something the district has been working on. I started working with a Monroe County committee of DEI that's facilitated by a number of community members, business members, educators in the Monroe County area since the fall of 2019. So the committee is getting some traction. Their focus is on how we can provide more training and education to not only our teachers, but our communities and our business leaders. So that is a monthly meeting that's been occurring since I've been involved since September. So it's important to recognize that DEI is something as a district that we've been looking at long before some of the events that are occurring across our nation at the moment. I also started working with one of our teachers and our high school North administration on what we could do with in-house training associated with DEI. And so that was started back in January. And we had some good traction going forward in February before we had to close our schools. But we have re-engaged in those conversations, and we have been meeting over the last several weeks. And I'm happy to report that our first training actually will begin this month, near the end of this month, at our administrative retreat, where all of our administrative team and our school security and our school police will participate in what will be eventually 7 different sessions around topics associated with DEI. And they include things like looking at demographics, looking at implicit bias, microaggressions, culture and cultural competency, culturally responsive teaching and code switching, culture and discipline, and how we can better serve our communities. So these are topics that are going to be presented, and our training is going to, again, begin as early as the end of this month with our entire school administrative team and our school police and security. And then we're looking at how we will expand that, as we will offer some training sessions to our teachers between now and the beginning of the school year as well, for them to get involved with, so that we're not waiting till the school year begins to continue our work and to continue our efforts in really getting people on the same page, or at least having the conversation and engaging in these conversations. The other thing we're looking at is during our high schools, we have, our high schools have implemented a training program, if you will, where teachers during homeroom have some scripted content and lessons, topics that they actually work with students on as part of the homeroom period. So we are going to, we're planning on how we can incorporate topics around DEI during those homeroom sessions this school year that would be available to all students in our high schools. And then how can we take those lessons and incorporate them into some of our existing programs at the middle school or intermediate school and elementary levels as well. So that work is being done so that we can make sure we're looking and having those conversations. Obviously, that would require some training of our staff before we put them in those conversations. We want to ensure that they are comfortable and having different discussions around DEI topics with students, and are able to facilitate those conversations at all of our levels. So that's something we're working on. We're also looking to do a SWOT analysis, which is going to identify our strengths and our weaknesses, as well as our opportunities and threats that are involved around DEI and the topics that I've discussed, but more importantly, to take a deeper dive into our curriculum, our current program offerings, our policies, even our budgets and our resources to ensure that equity does exist throughout our programs and all of those areas. So we would look to train some groups within each of our buildings to conduct what we would call an equity audit in those areas so that we can begin to collect that information and make those changes. We've also looked at the development of programs. However, we felt that it's important to take our existing programs, conduct that equity audit in our curricula and our program offerings, and make whatever adjustments we feel would be important to make in those areas before we start adding new things to that. So that's something we would be focusing on. Ironically, and maybe it's just good timing, last Monday, PSBA released 2 optional policies for boards to consider related to educational equity as well as trauma informed. And of course, we've been working as a district with trauma informed now for just over a year. And so the webinar that I participated in with PSBA had indicated that they worked on those policies for almost a year and a half. I think the important thing, and Dr. Bonilla, you alluded to this is a long process. I mean, they took a year and a half just to develop and offer to school districts these 2 policies. And what I thought was really important in their presentation was they created a continuum of readiness, and they really wanted districts to, before just adopting policies, just for the purpose of saying we have these policies, that they really went through that audit, that equity audit, and looked at everything to know that they were ready along this continuum before actually adopting those policies on equity, if boards would choose to do so, educational equity as well as trauma informed. So that was a very good session, and I think it was good in that it really provided that backdrop of saying, hey, this is something that takes time. You have many conversations around these topics. There's a lot of analysis that has to be done on what we currently have so that we can make some of those adjustments and determine where the district is on the continuum before adopting those policies. So that was a good program. I also last week was invited to participate in the first meeting. Dr. Sockman from ESU facilitated the meeting along with one of our administrators and a former administrator from Pocono Mountain School District on the school's development and encouragement of minorities to pursue educational careers, and so that we could bring more teachers, administrators, and employees into our school systems so that our students get to see people that look like them and people that can have those conversations as well. So it was a first meeting, I think, of many. And of course, I'm very interested in pursuing that with that committee. The important thing for me and I think for everyone is we're not interested in just talking about these things, but actually doing things, putting the work into it and creating actionable items that we can do as a district to have these conversations, engage in this kind of dialogue that we need around DEI, and really make the adjustments and add the components that are important for our students and our staff and our community. So it's been a long process already, and we have a long way to go. But those are some of the things that we've done in the past year to move our district in this direction.
That was an excellent overview. Thank you, Dr. Riker, and thank you for your commitment. This is hard work to be sure that we are considering equity in all aspects of education, and I appreciate you and the team. I think every time we hear Ms. Piparato present, she talks about equity, and I know that the team is committed to it. And I'm really proud of the work that the district is doing, especially as I talk with others across the state and the country and realize that not everyone is paying attention, is aware, and sensitive to these issues. I had an opportunity today to talk with the executive director and chair of the board of the Governor's Latino Commission that I sit on. And we talked about the importance of elevating this discussion. And we will be scheduling a call with Secretary Rivera. I know, Dr. Riker, you've been part of several calls through the IU, but we want to facilitate a discussion for the broader community. And when that is scheduled, I will make the information available to our district so that others who don't regularly get to hear, or invite him over, like some of our friends get to, that they'll be able to join and ask some questions. But thank you all for your efforts. Anybody on the committee want to react or ask a question before we open up for public participation? Rebecca, Debbie, George?
I'm just happy we're actually finally having discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's important, and I was even thinking that maybe we look at like an administrative position in the future that is like the director of DEI, to make sure that we're continuing to stay on path with that. So it's not something that just kind of falls to the wayside in 6 months from now, but maybe something in the future that we can look at if it's budget able to have a director of, diversity, equity, and inclusion, just something to think about.
Thank
I
you.
was,
Go ahead, Debbie.
I was just going to say, I would like to see us, as we start to launch some of these programs, have something open for our parents and guardians to be able to attend maybe a roundtable discussion or even a panel discussion, just to explain to the general public what it is we're doing. And I think that that would be a good interaction and a nice outreach.
Rebecca's nodding her head, and yeah, I totally agree, Debbie. And one of the goals that we've had through this committee, and we continue to remind one another, is we need more engagement at all levels of the community. And I hope that this will be the place where we will be able to engage more stakeholders in our community, specifically, as you noted, the parents and the guardians, because this is an area that does impact the community as a whole. And that's why it's important that we take our time and pace ourselves to be sure that we're doing it, that we're going about it the right way, that we're having the right discussions, and that we're not rushing it. And Rebecca, I wanted to react and say, well, we're here for 4 years, so we'll make sure it's not falling through the wayside. But that said, this is a partnership, and I did appreciate Dr. Riker's overview, because he's been working on it and there have been efforts, but now it's time to make that public and engage others. So the time is right, and the time is, and it's necessary to do it now. George, did you want to react or ask any questions?
No, it's been very interesting. I'm learning a lot, and I'm just listening here and speaking with Dr. Riker, and also it's been a very interesting evening.
I was going to say, you all are catching up there, so you probably heard some of it. But I wanted to publicly thank George, because a couple of weeks ago, I did a talk live on Instagram about civic engagement, specifically with a DEI lens, and just kind of shared it. And George participated, and I appreciated the support, because it's not just what we talk about here in these groups, but also what we're doing for the community and society broadly. So thank you for that, George.
It's the only way I can learn is by listening to these things. I come from a totally different background.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we did give our district a shout out, right? Is there anybody on the administration team that would like to make a comment or share thoughts before we open up for public participation? I'm trying to get through the pictures now. Okay.
Moran, I just want to say thank you to you and the board for their support as we go through this. I think it's going to be exciting. I think we're all excited to embrace this and move forward as a district. And I look forward to working with the committee and the board as we navigate through this and help our community and engage our community, as you've said. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Riker. This is one of, we have lots of areas where partnership is critical, but this is one of those really important areas where we have to do it together. You did remind me to mention that the board is also engaging in DEI training with the Pennsylvania School Board Association. When we have our board retreat next month, we're also going to have sessions and training for the board as well. So this is at every level. I do want to open up for public participation. We have several educators here that we'd like to hear from, as well as parents and guardians, and would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. So if you have a question or a comment, please raise your hand or type into the, well, chat is disabled. Mr. Moran, can you help me run this part? Oh, I see Mr. Reichel has a comment. Can somebody unmute him for me?
Yes, I got it.
Thank you.
I think I could just unmute myself. Is that okay? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
We hear you, Jeff.
Okay. Thanks. I wanted to say, first of all, my son has done that as part of the summer program to the STEAMR through Resica, and he's having a blast. And I agree with Dr. Bonilla that he does enjoy the break rather than going straight through. I know he's been playing with Play-Doh and making coral reefs and stuff like that, but he's really enjoying that. So that's something that my wife and I really enjoy having him involved in, and our new son that's going to be in kindergarten next year, he'll be doing that as well. One of the things kind of tying, I was wondering, I don't know if this is a possibility, this is kind of as a parent and an educator, with regards to the electives and also including in the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I noticed that a lot of kids who are involved in different programs, whether it's sports, clubs, band, chorus, tend to be more involved and tend to be more engaged and more kind of, I think with the whole diversity thing, is getting kids out into different settings that maybe they're not necessarily familiar with or comfortable with. And one of the things that I know when I used to coach basketball that I really had the kids get involved in was the community service. And for example, one of the things that kind of made me take a step back when we were doing community services, I told the kids, hey, you know what, we're going to do community service in Middle Smithfield Township. We actually adopted a road and we were going to clean it up. And the kids said to me, Coach, I'm not on probation. Why are we doing this? And so it's like that perception, that mentality. And I said, well, great, neither am I. It's just something good to get back to the community. So I really think I would love to see, and I don't know if we're able to do it, but make a requirement to have so many hours of community service by the time you graduate. And it's a positive thing because when the kids actually did it, they felt good about themselves. They felt like they gave back. They were part of a community. And I think that that's what we have to do with the kids, is to get them to feel like they are part of a community, like the bigger whole, like we're all working together to make our community, a better place. So that's something I'd like to see. I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but it would be something interesting to see if we could implement as we move forward, kind of looking into that. So.
Jeff, I can't agree with you more. There are many high schools across the nation that have a requirement of a number of hours of community service prior to graduation. It certainly wouldn't be anything detrimental toward our students, and it would make them better in the future.
And it looks good on the college application.
Right. And I'll be honest, like the kids may complain about it at first, some of them, but once they actually do it, like it was a whole, like an enlightenment. Like, for example, okay, we cleaned up garbage on a road and the kids were like, oh my God, can you believe what these people threw out their window? And then it's like, so now in their head, they're thinking, I'm never doing that, because I mean, we all drive by and see the McDonald's, the Wendy's, all the fast food wrappers that people just toss out their window, but it's something like that. And even like, we did way back, and Debbie Kulik, you'll know about this. Remember when at the Echo Lake Park, they used to have that haunted trail with ESU and had all the different clubs and organizations volunteer. They did that and worked with games with like the younger kids, and the younger kids look up to them, and it's like almost having like a mentoring program, kind of like a big brother, big sister kind of thing. And those type of things, I think, keep kids engaged and motivated to want to come to school and be part of the community. And I just think that that's really important to include a lot of those things.
They
As
do.
far as kind of the mental health part of it, I know that as counselors, we kind of go into different classrooms. Like we try and make ourselves available in different disciplines. And one of the nice partnerships I'll say that we have is we go into some of the health classes and talk about different mental illnesses or, suicide or just different things, topics like that. And it's kind of like a nice screening tool because maybe a kid doesn't open up and say, hey, blah, 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 but we can just judge their reactions as to a certain topic, which also diversity or any of that can go in as well. And based on how they're reacting, I make like mental notes and say, okay, I'm going to call that kid down and just touch base with them individually and kind of see how they're doing and kind of assess from there. So those kind of tools also help with the social and emotional well-being of the students as well.
Correct. I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate the partnership and, just how genuine you are when you join us and just share. I, in high school, participated in mandatory community service and learned a lot for it. And so I think, it's an idea that has support that we should talk about with the committee and then with the board at large. And I want to note, you reminded me of something when you talked about the mental health, where I want to note that DEI is not just about race and ethnicity. Right now,
Right.
across the country, we're seeing issues related to race and ethnicity, and as well as sector of work, right? People versus police, et cetera. But it is the status of mental and emotional well-being. It is the different abilities and learning processes and thought processes and family dynamics. And that's why it is such an expansive area for us to cover. And one of the comments that Dr. Riker made in previous discussion, was that we want to make sure this is woven throughout the different areas, right? So it's not just one course or one discussion or
Right.
one event, but really that it's embedded throughout everything that we do. And that's important for us to know. So thank you for your partnership. And I know that you'll be along for this work in the DEI space and continue to work with us. So thank you. Are there
You're
any
welcome.
Thanks. Are there any others that have comments or ideas or questions?
I do, but I want to be sure that the public can go first. So I'm just going to mute myself until we're at that point.
Well, I don't see anybody else, so why don't you go ahead and maybe you'll trigger something for someone else.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm so grateful that we are talking about this, and that, you jokingly said to Rebecca, well, we're at least here for 4 years, so we're going to make sure that happens, right? And you've heard me talk now about, all of us talk about our strategic objectives, and those 5 things are the pillars of what we want to do. But then in our last session, we talked about designing that ecosystem that is interrelated, so that there are strands that we have to keep going because they hit everything. We talked about communications is one of those strands. Technology, right, hits one of those strands. DEI is in my opinion, and I think it's in all of our opinions, a crucial part of that ecosystem. It's going to go through all 5 of those strategic objectives. And the goal, right, what we all want for that design is to include in those committees the public, our community, and our stakeholders, so that they have ownership, so that if Heather Piparato goes away, or Dr. Bonilla goes away, or that those things don't go away ever, right? They're built into the fabric of who we are as Eastburg. So I'm so excited about this work because I think it's integral to that ecosystem that we all said we need to build. Obviously, we've put it on hold just for a little bit because COVID has interrupted some of those things, but now it's that time to say, regardless of that, we're going to pick that mantle up again, and we're going to build the system that Eastburg says, this is who we are and this is what we need. So I'm excited about that work. I believe it's pervasive in all of our strategic objectives. I believe it needs to be attacked from a number of perspectives, right? Culture of organization and curriculum in terms of what it is that we're helping our students understand. All in all, to build community. I mean, that's really what we're after, right? You can't live in community without respecting each other and understanding other people's worldview, points of view, and understanding how to interact for a healthy community. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this. I do believe in action. Interestingly, I believe that a lot of our action is talking. I think a lot of our action is dialogue about and understanding other people's perspectives. And I think until we put ourselves in some uncomfortable positions, we won't truly get it. So I'm looking forward to being uncomfortable with everyone and learning like George. We all have a lot to learn about each other, but I'm grateful that we're in a district that is committed to making that happen.
Very well said. Thank you. And being uncomfortable is part of growth, as I know you're committed to that. I am as well. And we should at some point be uncomfortable to be able to stretch and grow. So thank you. And thank you for your leadership. I always love to hear you talk. So when you say I've talked too much, I'm always like, no, you haven't. Is there anybody else that has a question, a comment, or an idea that they want to share?
I just have a question. I meant to ask it earlier. How many classes does the average high school teacher teach per day?
There's a number of ways to answer that. If it's a 45, because we have 45-minute classes and we have
Right.
blocks, right?
Right.
So
Well, how many blocks do they teach, I guess?
they teach 3 blocks per semester.
Okay.
So that equates to 6 classes. In the middle school, for example, that our teachers teach 6 periods out of the 8.
Right. Correct. Yeah. But high school, obviously, it's different because middle school, they're with the same group of kids all day long for the most part. But
Yep.
in high school, they have a little bit more free will, the
Yes.
students.
Yep.
So I was just wondering, but each teacher teaches the same amount of blocks or amount of time per day?
Yes, every year, just so you know, it changes a little based on student enrollment. So
Right.
one year I could teach 6 classes for 5 years in a row, and then one year for some strange reason I only teach 5. And in
Right.
those cases, then we repurpose a teacher to either monitor a study hall or do some duty in the building that we need them to do.
Okay. I was just wondering how that worked because I never knew.
This is the group to have the discussion, Rebecca. And so I've learned something too. So thanks for asking. I hadn't thought to ask, but thanks for asking. I don't see any. I'm going to look one more time at all the pictures. I don't see any requests for comments. And Mr. Moran, we don't have any recommendations at this time, correct?
Correct. Not at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you to you and your team for the overview and for taking the past couple of months, taking us through all of the information that we needed to know to be more informed and make more informed decisions and be more engaged partners in this discussion. I'm excited about the continued work of this committee now that we have foundational knowledge and a better understanding of what is available, where are the spaces to make changes, what are some of the needs that we've identified together through the comprehensive planning process, through these committee discussions, and through just situations that we're seeing play out across society. So we hope that all of those that are engaging through Zoom will continue to engage. Even when we start meeting in person as a committee, we're going to make the Zoom available so that community members are able to participate. We know that's something that has been asked before, and we've been able to figure it out. There are a little bit of different dynamics when it comes to the in-person and the Zoom, but we're committed to doing that because we've loved the participation particularly on this committee, but across the board with all of our board meetings. And we don't want that to diminish. We actually want to increase that. So we want to see more teachers and more parents and guardians and some business owners. And we will continue to inform and work with the community as we go ahead. Mr. Moran, do you have any closing thoughts, or Dr. Riker, do you?
I just want to, again, I think echo what you've heard from our entire team, and just thanking the committee members and this committee in general, I think, for providing this platform to engage in these conversations. I know, this was something that was a temporary committee that was established, and we look forward to the possibility that it will be a permanent committee that will continue this conversation and move us forward as a district, as we continue that focus on students, ensuring that we're looking at their voice in what they need, and ensuring that we're able to provide a meaningful and engaging learning opportunities for our students. So thank you again, to our committee members for engaging us in this conversation.
Thank you so much. And yes, we look forward to making this a permanent committee that will allow us to continue the work and the partnership. Dr. Riker, do you have any closing thoughts?
As a curriculum guy for, well, forever, but 13 years of my career, yeah, this is probably my favorite committee in terms of the content, the topics, and what we're discussing, because as Mr. Moran said, it's really what drives our school and our opportunities to make a difference for students. And I know you'll hear me say this 1,000 times. It's an opportunity to make education something we do for students and not to students. So I'm thrilled to take that journey as well. And I think we're going to be able to do great things for our students and our community and our families. So I echo what everyone has said. I appreciate it. And I'm thrilled to be a part of it. So thank you.
Well, thank you for leading the charge.
Mary, can I just say something really quick?
Yes.
I just got an email from a teacher who was told to go to High School South and was never told that we were going Zoom. So he was not able to speak. And I know, Mrs. Piparato, you spoke to the teacher as well.
I did. I actually emailed him early this morning when I found out about the Zoom to let him
And he
know.
didn't get the email until just now, he just said. And he went to High School South at 7, and the resource person politely informed that he could not enter the building.
Right. So I want to apologize on behalf of the committee and the administration. We had announced online that it was going to be an in-person meeting, and then we did switch over to Zoom because the public could not come into the building anyway. And so we thought we'd meet via Zoom while we work out some of those details. So they would not have been able to enter anyhow, because the original instructions said that you had to register online and could only access through Zoom. So I apologize for the miscommunication. We will, Rebecca, let's follow up offline on that. What we will do is ask if they can send us an email with the information, and we will put their information into the minutes so that we have a document of their information and what they wanted to share.
Yeah, I know he was interested, I believe, Mrs. Piparato, in doing an African-American history class, correct? Because he's a civics teacher.
He is.
Yes, he's my son's, and my son said he's the GOAT. So.
Okay.
He
Well,
speaks Italian, so he and I are like this. We practice together.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
he's wonderful with the students, and it's been something he's been asking to do for a couple years now. So I think it'd be great to do it and look into doing it, especially when we're going DEI. With that, it would play really well into it.
So I appreciate that, and we will be sure that we request the information in writing. I don't want us to have the discussion without the person being able to share exactly what they want to share. However, we will ask for it in writing. Rebecca, I'll coordinate that with you since you have the contact, so that we're sure that it's in the minutes, because we don't want to leave out that information, and we will apologize again. We're working out these kind of processes with going back to some of our meetings in person. Our Properties and Facilities Committee did meet in person. We're going to meet again, just FYI for anyone who's joining us next month, and we'll be sure to clarify, we're going to meet by Zoom again next month, and we'll be looking to go back to the in-person in September. but we'll make sure that information is out for everybody. Our next meeting is the first Wednesday of August, which is scheduled for August 5th at 7 p.m. I also want to encourage members of the public and any of our educators and others here to join us on our special board meeting on July 8th at 7 p.m., where we will be discussing and voting on the new school year. That's an important discussion. Please share with others. And I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Anybody have a motion? Thank you, Kevin. Anybody second that motion?
Oh, I will, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca. They love this committee. They want to keep talking. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Have a nice
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you all.